7:20, and our next guest is, I suppose, what you could call an interviewer's dream, because he's never lost for a quote. He's the presenter of radio's quote unquote. He's author of a seemingly endless string of hugely successful graffiti books. And here he is, Nigel Rees. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Nick.
What's with the jacket then? It's a bit
it's rather nice,
side.
isn't it? Yes. But I thought, you know, I've never been let out on a weekday before. I'm usually here with Henry on a Saturday or Frosty on a Sunday. So in your honour, I got one of Tom O'Connor's cast-offs.
It's not radio, you know.
Yeah, well, no, radio when I wears evening dress, as you know. But I thought that would be a bit much for this morning.
Anyway, it's good to see you. You have a new book coming out in May, don't you?
Yes, it's called A Who's Who of Nicknames.
Which is what exactly?
Well, it's a sort of guide to all sorts of nicknames of all sorts of curious people through history and right up to date. Some very curious ones. I'll just give you one as a sort of preview. You know, in Wales, they often say, you know, Jones the organ, or Jones the grocer, or whatever. Somebody told me that in Barry, you know Barry? Yes. They had a window cleaner called Davis, and they wanted to distinguish him from all the other Davises, so they called him Shammy Davis Jr.
Oh, I like that. That's very good.
So that's just a little taste for you.
And what is this fascination you have with words? I mean, I can quite understand it. I find words fascinating.
Well, I think particularly at the popular end of the market, if you know what I mean, what people say in everyday speech is vastly entertaining, and things like slang are so colourful. I mean, they're the sort of things that people say in popular idiom are vastly colourful. And I suppose one of the things one does is to make people laugh by just repeating what people say in ordinary life. The other thing is, in a way, to record everyday speech and language as well. Yes,
and you've written a book on cliches, haven't you?
Yes, I have indeed, including how to interview people. Cliches, which I notice you've been reading, Nick.
Oh dear, it's going to be a difficult morning, I think. But how do cliches become cliches?
By being used over and over again. I mean, a cliche is just a worn-out phrase. I mean, the politician's phrase like winter of discontent. I mean, originally Shakespeare wrote that, and when Shakespeare wrote it, it was a wonderful phrase. But when every politician says, you know, it's a winter of discontent ahead, and people just... There's a test you can have for a cliche, which is that your stomach sinks ever so slightly when you hear it.
Yes. OK, well, look, Nigel, we'll chat again in a moment, and later on we're going to be meeting you and your father.
My dad, making his first television appearance at 74.
Yeah, I hope he's proud of you.
He is.
Is he?
Well, we will see.
Don't show him the jacket, will you? Cheers, Nigel, for the moment.
It's interesting to know where all Nick's little ad-libs come from. Now I know he's got a quote-unquote book somewhere hidden in the back of the office.
Could earn a living, you know.
Well, we're talking about dads particularly now, because it's our Me and My Mum spot, which has been neatly changed at the moment to Nigel Rees's dad. Now, Nigel was only 10 when he was first lured to the microphone. All this and much more is revealed in this week's Me and My Dad. First, though, Nigel with a few thoughts on his father, who's called Stewart.
Well, I think he was quite good as fathers go. I mean, I haven't had very much experience of any other fathers, but I think he was quite well behaved. Though he did do one silly thing once. On Christmas Eve, I don't know how old I was, but I think I still was a fervent believer in Father Christmas. I may be wrong. And late on Christmas Eve, no doubt very excited, I was lying in bed, looking forward to the morn, and I heard Pa's voice somewhere else in the house saying to my mother, "Have you filled Nigel's stocking yet?" But I think that's really the only thing he's ever done wrong, really.
Thank you. Well, the fact he wasn't the least interested in games. Both my wife and I were very keen on games, and that was a source of disappointment to us. In fact...
Oh, did I disappoint you, Pa?
On one of his school reports, he got a typical schoolmaster's cynical comment that, talking about Rugger, that Nigel's contribution to the game, only contribution to the game, was his presence on the field. In no way a problem child. It was very easygoing, really. We never had any problems with homework, difficulties like that. I suppose he is relaxed in that respect. And
was I well behaved?
Oh, I think so. 8 out of 10.
Did you ever have to smack me?
No, not really. I don't think so.
I think you did. I think my mother put you up to it. She used to say to you, "Go on, hit him."
Because from a very early age, he concentrated on this taping. He got this, I would say, bee in his bonnet when he was about 10, whatever, 12. He saved every penny of his pocket money. And then one day, his mother said to him, "Well, how much more do you need?" I think the tape recorder was about £40 in those days. and he'd got about 30. So she said, well, if you like, I'll lend it to you, which he did, and he gave her an IOU, which is preserved till this day.
Preserved in the family archives.
In those days, I think most parents expected their children to go into the old conventional business, like banking or shipping.
He was in banking.
And Nigel made it quite clear that on no way would he go into something like that.
Why weren't you keen on me going into
Well,
television or radio?
We wondered what on earth you were letting yourself in for. You know, whether you'd be a penniless broadcaster. In those days, of course, it was a very unusual thing, really. And
I think you were worried about something else. I think you thought that all these people in television were terribly immoral and worked all sorts of late hours, all sorts of strange things went on, which you didn't
well, it
think...
may have crossed our minds, but it didn't. I would say we didn't try to dissuade him from doing this.
I think he's a... This is really heart-to-heart stuff. I think he's a very good man. I don't think he's ever really done anything wrong. I couldn't imagine him sort of being nasty to anybody or...
There's time yet.
There's plenty of time yet. I know how you've changed recently, but I think that's the chief thing. He's a bit of a saint, really. You know, he doesn't...
Oh, no.
Well, yes, you are, because you don't do wrong. You know, I sometimes feel slightly inclined to be a bit devious or a bit sharp, but you're never that way at all. It's quite remarkable.
That's nice. Did you find the world of broadcasting immoral then?
Yes, absolutely terrible. Yes. Oh, goodness me, is that me going backwards?
Yes, you do speak in a very funny way, don't you, sometimes?
But it was very funny. I mean, the truth did come out when we were talking, when we were recording that. My father he was prompted to say what was wrong with me, and he thought very long and hard, and he finally came out and he said, well, I think he's a bit impatient. And this was the first time he's ever actually said that. But it's perfectly true, I am a bit impatient.
Are you? Well, stop it. Sit back.
Yes, sorry, I must relax. I know we've got to relax on the sofa.
Can we talk about the influence of fathers for a moment? There's an exclusive interview in the Daily Telegraph. You know, there's talk about the education shake-up, Sir Keith Joseph, etc. It says, in an exclusive interview with the Telegraph, Sir Keith said yesterday that a minority of parents fail to value education, possibly because they had not benefited from it themselves. As a result, they don't do the things that children and schools need if they're to function properly. They don't read to their children, they don't talk to their children, they don't encourage their children to try at school, they don't support the school, and in extreme cases connive at truancy. How about that? I'm sure your father never did any of those things.
Well, I think it's a two-way thing, isn't it? I think it's parents and teachers at the same time.
But I mean, you've got a love of words. Is it because your parents used to read to you when you were a kid or something like that?
A little bit, not a great deal. There were books in the house, but not an awful lot of books. And my father's a great reader, so I suppose there was something in it from that point of view. But I think my teachers were extremely important. Without them, I would have gone off in a completely different direction. For example, my big brother, who was more into science, and I thought, well, I had to do what he did. And it was only because one of my teachers said, have you ever thought of writing or being more involved in English and things like that, that I went off in that direction. So it was up to really one teacher who changed the whole direction of my life.
You sort of dabbled with review and so on.
Oh, yes.
Show-busy aspects.
Yes. But no, my father, I don't know quite what I get from him, really. One is a sense of humour. I mean, we both enjoy entertainment, whereas I think my mother was a bit suspicious. I think she thought, well, you know, these frivolous people who come on the box and fool about. But my father's a great laugher. Another thing that I get from my father is we conduct gramophone records. Did you ever do that?
Oh, yeah.
As soon as music comes on, you know, you start conducting the gramophone. That's something that's sheer copying from my father.
Anyway, I think all of us as penniless and immoral broadcasters ought to stick together, don't you? And we'll take a break.
Hello again. Nigel Rees and Jean Anderson are with us this morning. Nigel, where do you get the material for your books? Now, everybody must ask you that.
Yes.
But, all right, what's the rudest loo you've ever been in?
The Rudest Lou? Well,
Or the most interesting one?
I think it's, you know, ITN in the centre of London. Across the road from ITN, there's a wine bar.
I was going to say not ITN, surely.
Well, and there are some very interesting things written on the wall.
In the wine bar opposite?
Yes, about Sandy Gall and Trevor MacDonald.
Oh, really?
People known
Are
to
they
us all.
printable in your book?
Oh, yes. Including one about me was actually in that particular wine bar across.
Oh, what did it say?
It said, it was a very quite educated hand. It said, Nigel Rees talks a load of old walls.
That's good.
That is very clever.
And it really is very embarrassing because, as you were hearing from my father, I've had this great education, and yet here I am hanging around in Lou's looking for... It's very sad, really.
You don't actually really go into Lou's looking, do you? I mean, people...
Sometimes, but on the whole, I mean, most of the graffiti that comes my way is sent to me by people from all over the world who are, in a sense, much more obsessed by it than I am. But people, if they come across a joke written on a wall somewhere, they think that it is the first time that it has ever been written on a wall anywhere.
Yes.
And they rush to tell me, and I have to say, oh, well, probably that was first written about 50 years ago.
Yes, I've got that circa 1902. The really clever ones are ones that add on, where you start off with a funny one, like there's a lecture on schizophrenia, I have half a mind to go, or something. And then somebody else writes something underneath, and it starts to add on, and those are the really clever ones.
A sort of dialogue starts up. I noticed, curiously, coming in the dawn's early light this morning, going across a bridge in Paddington, where there's quite an old one, it's quite faded, where one person had written in quite large letters, "Herbie loves Ruby." And somebody else, obviously somebody else, had written underneath, "No, he doesn't." And one wonders, who wrote that?
Yes.
Was it somebody, a friend of Herbie's or a friend of Ruby's?
Well, Herbie could have been Herbie himself.
You think so?
The first one could have been Ruby's wishful thinking.
Yes.
And it could have been Herbie's reply underneath.
There it is in big letters for posterity. You know.
Takes a twisted mind to have thought that one out.
Yeah, well, that's appropriate, isn't it? It's 8:27, time for the answer to last Wednesday's 10-second tease. We showed you this picture of a group of, well...
Actually, and this is, you know how Prince Charles is looking for something new in his life? What about this?
Anyway, staying with news and current affairs, so Nigel, Rees and Gyles, you've both done the same job, haven't you, on Countdown, the Channel 4 quiz situation.
He warmed up the seat in Dictionary Corner for many years, and then I sort of slipped in, and now we sort of...
We alternate, it's rather fun.
We have a little gang of us, we do it. It's a very enjoyable programme.
I think you're awfully clever.
I think
Are
it's
you really
quite
as clever
culty,
as you
isn't
look?
it?
Of course we are. Well, you know, you just mention a word and we can give you an anecdote, a joke about it. Whatever word you come up with, we can tell you something about it.
We've got a girl
You can't
sitting
get a word
next...
in edgeways.
Let me be honest, we've got a girl sitting next to us who comes from the Oxford English Dictionary, and she's there flicking through, helping, looking upwards.
She's the one with the brains, then.
And it's much more, well, she's brains and beauty. It's much more difficult, of course, if you're doing it against the clock, if you're there, because the mind suddenly goes blank. I was sitting at a dinner the other night next to a bishop, and he was asked to say grace. And I saw he had it on a card. For what we are about to receive, may the Lord make us truly thankful. And I said, excuse me, Bishop, why have you got this? And he said, because a few weeks ago he was doing it and his mind went totally blank. And curiously, when you're under stress, you genuinely can start, you know, you can be looking at good morning who? Yeah. Good morning, you know. And then you've forgotten that it's good morning Britain.
Yes, when we're chatting to people on the programme, I don't know about you, but I write down the name in very big letters on a piece of paper, you know, the Queen, things like that.
Because it's terrible. At the end of an interview, if you say, well, thank you very much.
Bad moment.
Terrible, really embarrassing.
Yes.
Very bad moment.
Yes, thank you for that.
Little hint.
You two are very similar, aren't you? Have you noticed
We're not
this,
at
Jude?
all
Yes,
similar.
very
We
similar.
are completely different. Gyles is probably older.
No, I could well be. I'm 37 now.
No, you're
Will
slightly
you take your
younger.
glasses off, please?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry about this. It's
Clones.
first on...
Clones.
I would be very flattered to be told that we were similar, because I think
Yes,
that
because I
Nigel
think
is...
you'll be getting the better deal.
Yes, I met the... Yes. Oh, thank you.
You're
Yes.
looking at the screen.
Yes,
Isn't that clever? This is television.
It's a split screen sort of thing.
Oh, I'll say, they're nice.
We couldn't do that live. It's because
Yes.
this programme is recorded, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're doing it.
Well, we're
I was going
certainly
to say
pre-recorded.
No, somebody... I met...
It's 8:56 and this is Good Morning Britain, by the way.
That's
and it is
true.
live. Go on.
Yes, I happened to meet, talking about us being a little bit on the similar side, I met the television critic of the News of the World. Do you know who I mean?
Oh, that marvellous lady.
Nina Mishkov, who,
Yes.
you know...
The Wally of the Week lady.
Bit difficult, Wallies of the Week and all the rest of it. And she said, I'm so pleased to meet you, because you wear those lovely pullovers on Countdown.
Oh, dear.
Oh, and I thought, you know... difficult.
Yes, very tricky.
I was once mistaken for
Not
being
good for her
Prince
credibility.
Charles, you know, and I was travelling in a bus. and because they thought I was Prince Charles, I felt obliged to get off at the stop nearest Kensington Palace so as not to let them down.
Gyles, thank you. Well, let's find out what's on Wincey's wall.
I thought we were never going to with Gyles in. You can't predict anything. Hello. This morning we start with Penwith and...